Hey guys, what's up? I wanted to show you guys some updates to the unit train process. I mentioned in the last video that I was working on unit trains, and I've also been working on some other projects, but we'll cover those later because I'm still kind of in the process of working on some stuff. But the sulfur train is the one I've been really working on because this is one I've been really wanting to pump out since I got the cars. So I've been absolutely hammering away at molten sulfur tank cars and modeling these. I'm trying to go for like a 50, kind of 60 car train since the Model Red will obviously be able to handle it. I've been trying to kind of prototype, replicate a whole bunch of these cars. I have a whole fleet of Walthers because I bought these from Spring Creek, and I've been going through and just kind of weathering them. Now most of these cars I'm showing you are kind of basic weathered. They're not fully detailed. You know, I'm not going into a lot of detail with kick-up splatter and things like that. They have some light weathering, they have some rusting, maybe some fading, molten sulfur splatter, the appropriate data where needed, you know, but I tried to keep each one of these cars as simple as I could because these are essentially mainline weathered to run a unit train, you know, tank train. So each car, you know, it looks right, but it's not super detailed. I could always go back and add more detail to these if I wanted to, but they're pretty basic weathering overhaul. This first TLX car is a good example of what I'm talking about, and just bear with me because the lighting's not great, but you can see really what I tried to focus on with the weathering on these kinds of cars is adding the DOT striping, which is real safety tape, weathering the trucks and wheels and making those look right, and then just doing some very basic powder work on the underbody to replicate the kick-up spray. So we're talking extremely basic weathering to replicate all that. And that's basically the process I adapted to do all of these cars. You'll notice that I did do a light grime fade on this, and that's another common thing I did on a lot of these cars because that's a very common weathering that you actually do see on these cars. And some of them are a little bit more heavily weathered. So you have this one here. I got some custom decals made, and I actually re-decaled pretty much all of these cars. They all are re-decaled for Trinity Industries, GATX, all kinds of different variations. So you have this TLX car, for example, here, basic flat black. You have ones that are a little bit cleaner like this one. This is a complete repaint. I just completely repainted this one, decaled it, and weathered it to match one of the more modern repaints where they have the data. Actually really high up on the tank body. I thought that was kind of unusual, so I replicated that. This one here is a KLRX. This is a fade, heavy fade car, so I just completely graded out and then did the grime washes and everything like that. And then I did my own custom decal patchwork, safety striping, updated the data and everything like that. And you can see this one actually has the streaking, because some of these cars I did go into a little bit more detail with. Some of the really interesting, unique cars. I try to do some, you know, different kinds of weathering to replicate some different things. So that's a heavily weathered car with a lot of rust. And then this one here is like a fresh repaint, and it has the interesting compressed lettering font that they use a lot of times on these kinds of cars. And I just used Tester's gloss coat, and I used some custom decals made by Circus City Decals for me. He did a large sheet of different tank car data sheet sets for all these cars, PPRX, Lx, GATX, for example. And he made me duplicate numbers so I could actually do the end decals on most of these ends of the cars, because a lot of these kinds of cars have the numbers spray painted or actually decaled 3 times on the ends in each end. So I got custom extra sets of decals to replicate some of these, which is nice. So I decaled that one. It's a complete repaint, gloss coat, new decals. This one's a TGOX, heavy grime wash. Did some sponge work to this one, added a little bit of graffiti, new data. It's got a lot of heavy sulfur splatter on the top, for example, but this is an older car, nice rusty dirty car. Got another clean TILX. This one is actually a factory number. I just weathered it up, faded it down, added the labeling there, and then these have the little stencil cover strips, which I always thought was interesting. They put those little like vinyl stickers on the sides of these things, the white strips I mean, and then they usually are on there. I got a GATX. This is another custom decaled, custom lettered one. Replicated this from photos. So you can see it's got all the appropriate tank data, new data on the ends there, sulfur splatter and all that good stuff. Got 2 SUJX units there, again with the heavy sulfur splatter. These are both factory numbered. I just did a light grime wash on them and then put the data and everything on the safety stripes. Nothing crazy or special, just very basic weathering. And then these guys here I went into a little bit more detail with because they're a little bit older. They're the yellow band type cars. I just basically did the rust streaks on the ends and the kick up. I did a lot of rust, for example, on the top around the walkways and things like that, rust pits, grimed it up a little bit. Lots of attention to detail with the splatter, of course, things like that. On the cars where I really wanted to do heavier work. This other one here is really cool. It's got the primer patches made out for the stripes on the part of the car, which I thought was pretty cool. So that's kind of, you know, a neat little variation where you have some that are kind of basic, and then others you can go into a little bit more detail with, where you can actually put some time into actually detailing the weathering a little bit more. But that's what I like about doing some of these. You can do them as heavy or as light as you like, because there's a prototype for everything in these kinds of trains. The other thing about all of these are all the Walther's proto cars. They're hard to find, but I got these and I installed the KD shelf. These all have the KD shelf couplers on them, each one of them, because the rule is they have to have the double shelf couplers. All 10 cars do. Even non-hazmat ones like Corn Syrup have to have those. Okay, so this fleet over here is the others. These are ones I just more recently finished. I got another TILX black. That's a factory job. Just did the interesting weathering on that. Light weathering for the most part. This one here is another factory, just slightly faded. A little bit of grime and rust. GATX, that's a custom factory. I just did a little bit of data modification and faded it, added the safety striping, and if you actually look, you can kind of see where they redid the data. So I tried to replicate that, and then it's got the new patch marks made out for the stripes, and then it's got this really interesting greasy stain and lots of sulfur splatter, which I do with acrylic. Let me see. This guy, FHRX, again, just a pretty light grime wash. Another TILX. Let's see, I got a Timex over there. There's another different road name. Got another Timex here. This one is really cool because it has the data, where they actually modified the data and replaced it. And then it's got a repainted band. It's already starting to rust up because these get pretty beat up. So I weathered that one. So that's another unique car. Custom TILX. Another number there. That's an older one. I've had this one in my collection for a while. So I just kind of updated the weathering a little bit. It's kind of clean. Another FHRX there. Another PPRX. That's a factory PPRX car. Did not do anything to that other than just weathering, and updated the couplers and all the data and everything like that. A little stencil modification. This one is a complete re-decal, a TILX. It's got a little side swipe on it, which is pretty cool. Blue bearings. Updated data. This one is a PPRX, a heavy faded car, where it turns pretty much gray. You got the safety striping, all that good stuff on there, but it's again a factory job. And you can see I got a bad batch of clear coat for this one. Testers re-released the dull coat, but the cans I have suck, and they end up speckling the car body really bad. So that's kind of an unfortunate thing, but from a distance you can't see it as bad, and if you look at it like that you can't see it. So this one is another TILX. GATX. Now these two are interesting because these have the different style artwork, again kind of similar to the one down there, where they use a compressed font. Now Smokebox was the first to actually offer decal sheet with these, but since I needed to do 10 car data, I had Matt from Smokebox Graphics make me this font to do all these cars, and they're the GATX version, so they have the end reporting dated there ×3, which is pretty sweet, and I did that for both of these. Other than that, complete re-decal, weathered up. This one's got the really cool splatter all over the top from the sulfur. Splattered all over the place. So those are those cars, and then out here I got some more interesting ones as well. The first one is one of the yellow, increasingly rare, yellow painted TILX cars. I did this one from prototype photos, not the exact number, but a similar car. I just kind of replicated the data and everything to how it looked, added the striping, did all the heavy rust, and then you got all these little scrapes where you can see it kind of peeled the grime off, revealing the yellow underneath. I did fade this a little bit, and I did some other stuff. I actually did the splatter on this one, again because it's very highly visible, since it's being a bright yellow car like that. So I just tried to replicate that best I could. And I feel like it turned out pretty good. I really like the weathering. I got 2 more of this type of car I got to do. But they're out. This version in the back here is the NDYX, the first Union Rail version. These are pre-patched from the factory. All I did to these was just give them a heavy weathering, and I got 2 of them. I did some sponge work on the top of the tank to make it look like there's some rust starting to form, and I thought it turned out pretty good, to be honest. These are pretty unique cars, and they have the really odd end reporting marks too, where they re-stenciled that. So I thought it would be cool to at least have 2 of those. They got the sulfur splatter, of course, and things like that. You got these 2 here, which are pretty interesting. These are the Lx Repaints, where they use their compressed lettering. So I just stripped most of the data off these and re-decaled both these, the pair of them, and added all the appropriate data and things like that. The 2448 hazmat code. This one here in the back is really cool because it has the double tape striping where they replaced it, but instead of taking the old off, they just kind of put the new ones beside them, so you have this really cool pattern. You got the data covers there on the tank as well. Nice light grime fade, make it look nice and grimy. Same with that one. You got a PPRX, that's a fresh repaint, nice and clean car, repainted by Trinity, I believe. So I just did a complete repaint and then a heavy gloss, did all the data and everything like that. So a lot of these cars are repainted. A lot of them I went in a little bit more detail with. This one is pretty cool. It's a GATX version. It's another fresh repaint, and it's got all the really cool data and everything like that. Light weathering to start off with, new couplers, DOT stripes, all that good stuff. I think I just showed that one. That one's the GATX, the heavy grime one. Again, it's got the data on the ends because you have to. All these cars pretty much have that, and it's got the new data, the new hazmat table, or rather the tank inspection table. It's all applied there. And then lastly, for this corner, I have the older Union tank version, the UTLX versions of the 16,000 gallon tank cars, and a number of these cars are still in service, most notably the Procore, the old SHLX versions. They're relatively nice cars, the old Walthers cars. These are the Gold Line series from the 2000s. I just basically went through and added all the details for the most part. I did some basic brake rigging on the bottom, added a couple of lift bars, air hoses, a little chain to the brake wheel, and I just did some really cool modifications like that where needed. So I have the Procore version back there where I actually added some new numbers, things like that, some new plates and all the detailing, faded it down, custom number, new safety striping, new data. This version here is the UTLX, relatively clean car compared to some of them. It's the straight UTLX, so I just again added all the details, new couplers, heavily grimed it up, gloss coat too. You got the molten sulfur data re-stenciled on there and all the hazmat coating, all the work on the top, and then you got the little placards there. Cool little placards for loading. I made the little plates from styrene, glued those on there because the UTLX and the Procore versions have those little plates. You can see the Procore version has it too. So there's the UTLX. These here, this one is a Procore SHLX 347 factory number. I just basically went in and again added all the detail parts, new couplers. I heavily faded down the tank, added some graffiti and some light weathering to taste, but again, there's really not a crazy amount that I changed. I really just added some other stencils to enhance the overall updates that these tank cars go through. This one's got the old stencil covers as well, heavy grind trucks, placards added, lots of rust, some sulfur splatter. This one is a complete repaint. I did a complete strip down repaint of this one. I don't actually remember what this used to be. It was one that I had in storage. I was like, I might as well turn this into a Procore car. So it gave me some opportunity to kind of model some different variations, like the different Procore logo, different prox number, for example. I went through and added all the data. Again, it's a custom paint job, nicely faded up, but you got all the detail parts again on that one. This one is pretty cool, another SHLX. So I just renumbered this one, so it's got a custom number with some custom decals. Got the placards on the handrails there on the top. Added those, the detail parts again. There's the number on the ends. You can see that when you really get into the weathering, you can see how it's not really up to snuff with what I really can do and what I normally do for tank cars. But again, These cars are meant to be coupled all together, where you're going to see them in a unit train. You're not going to be seeing stuff like that for the most part in between. It has what it needs, and it's enough. There are some areas where I go into detail, and especially with like molten sulfur, lathing, spillage, and everything like that. As long as the cars have the data, they have some minor detailing, they look right, and they fit right into a train. So that's that section. The next couple cars I'm going to show you are ones that are in the works, or more of a project in a way of completing. So if we get up to the bench here, you can see I got yet another SHLX Procore car. Same process, just detailed this one up the other day. It's got the heavy grime fade on it, where the car body is completely grimed and rusted. Updated the data and put the striping on it. This one is going to be the end of train car, so I'm actually going to equip an EOT to this. I got a ring EOT that I'm going to apply to it. I just got to finish the weathering up on that one. This ITDX is one I just picked up, so it's in the works. I just kind of replicated some of the new data on it, added the detail parts and things like that to spruce it up, and then replaced some fittings, and then updated some of the hazmat information, things like that. So you can see I still got to weather the trucks, the underbody a little bit, but it's got the grime wash and this heavy grime, so you can see when you look at it, it's got a lot of that nice rust. Gives it that nice rusty tone to the car body, which is what it needs. So I got all that pretty much done. These cars will probably be done this week. I'll wrap them up and put them in the case so I can store them. Let me see, what can I show you guys first? Okay, so these are all cars that I've done a lot more work to. This is another Walther's car, yes, and this is one I went into a lot more detail with. So Procore does have a couple of variations of these sulfur cars where they did some different kinds of platforms, and this is the Canadian style walkway platform with the interesting handrails. So I basically took a Walther's car and stripped it down. I added all the detail parts and things like that on the ends. I added all the tank data. It's actually completely custom painted. It's got the nice heavily faded black, and then I added the detail parts on this end as well, which all look really cool. And on this side, pretty much the same thing. Nice heavy weathering, grime on the trucks, underbody piping and detailing. Very, very basic, I should say. But the hatch is the coolest part because I basically fabricated all this from styrene. I made an entire platform out of styrene, and then I laid photo etch walkways over it that are obviously see-through. So when you look at it, you can see through the photo etch walkway. Then I installed the hatch that I needed, rusted all that up, and then I scratch built these handrails with 20-inch phosphor bronze wire and styrene. So I fabricated all these, and then I made the little rolled platform handles there using this little dental pick type tool. I just basically wrapped the wire. It took a couple tries to get a few that were acceptable, that were all the same size. Once I got them, I just pretty much cut them to size, glued them on, and then once I had all the handrails done, I just painted the car and weathered it to look like this. So this is a fully Canadianized Procore 16,000 gallon type tank car, and this one also has the interesting bolsters. I scratch built those. They're different than the Walther's car. You can see the Walther's car is slightly different. The straight Walther's car, I should say. I modified these, so that's another detail variant I did. So that's a really cool custom Procore car, and I'm really happy with that one. It's also got custom ladders too. I made all this new wire detail from scratch. Brand new ladders, and then again the top hatch and all that is brand new, so that's one of my favorites. So the next two really unique cars I have are Athearn. These are the 16,000, their version of the 16,000 gallon Union tank car version, and there's a couple of variations of these cars. They're similar, but I used the Kaolin tank car to kind of make a mock-up of this other version of sulfur car you see in service. This is an SHPX version. What I did with this car was I modified the underbody detailing. I changed the brake rigging and things like that. New couplers, some other basic details. The real big thing I did was I modified the top railings because the new cars, or the car that I was trying to model, has a shorter walkway. So I actually took some photo etch, made my own walkways, platforms, and then made my own hatches and railings from scratch with wire. And then this car got completely custom painted, heavily weathered. Well, not heavily weathered, but pretty good grime fade, a little bit of a light fade. I just did some other detail work and things of that sort. It's got a little bit of sulfur spillage, but not a crazy amount. And I just replicated all the data and everything like that. The decal sheets I've been using have been extremely helpful. I've been using some of the Smokebox Graphics tank data sheets, and then again I have these custom sheets these are all custom decals I've actually had made for all kinds of various projects. But there's the tank data sheet where I actually have tons and tons and tons of numbers to do all kinds of different cars. I get quite a few variations, of course, stencil data and everything like that, and the hazmat codes as well, 2448. So that's the first one I did, and then the second one is a little bit more of a different, So it's got pretty much the stock walkway platforms, very basic modifications, but again, it's just got a nice custom paint job, heavy fade, grime washes, and then the custom decaling with all the data and everything like that. Spending basically a few hours doing all the data, putting all that in, and then getting all it sealed in and everything like that. It's a real pain with these black cars because sometimes the decals don't want to settle down. But that's what Microsol is for. Anyways, I got that and all the work and everything on this side here with all the really cool data. All the splatter and dirt and grime on the top gets really caked up there around those hatches, especially. And it pretty much is like that for any of these modern tank cars. It's really the kind of weathering you see on a lot of these. A lot of dry, rusty effects like this, where a lot of this is done with a base wash effect and then powders to achieve that. So those are the two 16,000 gallon cars I did. This next one is another Walthers 14K sulfur car, but this one's a extensive rebuild and kit bash, if you want to call it that. It's a very old Procore type sulfur car. What I did was I used the 14K sulfur car, and then I actually took ends from an old Walthers LPG kit, which are the flat angled ones, and grafted those on there, cut them to size, fitted them. I added my own walkways, new brake rigging, end details, new brake wheel, new railings, like again the side railings. This railing here is scratch made. Everything on the new, basically new ladders, new trucks. I made scratch built bolsters for this car. Complete overhaul, custom paint job, heavy weathering, and then same thing on the end. You can really see that flat end. It's a really unique style of car, and then it's got all the grab irons and everything like that, which I also added, all the grime work. And then again, that's all custom painted from prototype photos of older Procore prototypes, the 75,000 series. And again, this one has the really cool manway area here, where it has the custom built walkway platform using photo etch, and then it has custom built handrails made with custom stanchions, excuse me. And you can see there's a lot of rust and grime and everything like that at the top. But it's a very, very unique type of older Procore sulfur car, and a lot of these have been retired and scrapped, but I wanted to have at least one veteran car like that. So that's a really cool rebuild. This one took me a long time to do, and I definitely don't have any plans to build another one of these. I had to use quite a few different kinds of decals to also do the Procore lettering, for example, the new data and everything like that. So it was a lot of work. So that one's done. And then these two here I just finished. This first one here is a TGOX, a Transrail Sulfur Car, first Union Rail. This is actually the classic Atlas 14,000 gallon Kaolin tank car. These came out in '94, and they've been around since, but they've never really been, unfortunately, retooled. I wanted to model some similar cars using this old Atlas car, so what I did was I completely stripped down the Atlas car. I scratch built my own walkway end platforms, new air tanks, new bolster pads, new handrails, grab irons, new end details, air hoses, couplers, modified the ends, new handrails, new anti-personnel railings, new underbody brake detailing, new ladders. The top has different hatches, scratch-built handrails, manways, walkways, all that good stuff is scratch-built from wire and styrene. Same thing on the ends. Again, you can see They've been upgraded with photo etch platforms, brand new coupler pockets, and everything like that. Air hoses, KD couplers, the whole 9 yards. This one is custom painted for TGOX. All the data has been applied, and it has the very extreme sulfur spillage. But I wanted a couple old cars, and I definitely have gotten them. So these are definitely nice cars once you put the work into them, but starting off they definitely don't have a lot of detail. But they still are worth kind of fixing up a little bit and making look nice. That's the TGOX. I'm really proud of that one. And then the second one is built exactly the same as the first. The only difference is I modified the railings because it has a slightly different type of fitting and a slightly different type of handrail to actually work around the fitting. You can see that. So I modified that. Again, pretty much new end platforms and end detailing on this one. This is a TCPX patched car. So I did all the detail work and everything like that to it. Complete custom paint job, new data, but overhaul in every which way. But I love making these old tank cars because you can just put so much effort into them and make them really look nice. Like this looks like a brass quality model now compared to what it started off of, which is kind of a crappy Atlas car. I shouldn't say they're crappy. The tank body still is kind of nice, and there's still some decent details, but it's a lot of work to put in to try to make a car like this, but it's definitely worth it in the end. The placards are all scratch built too, so it's a lot of work. There's a look at the underbody. But we've gotten a lot done on the sulfur train thus far, guys. I definitely have a lot more cars to do, but from here on out I'm just going to be keeping on working on 16,000 gallon cars, and I got a couple more 14K cars I got to do too. So I'm just going to kind of keep updating you guys as I go, but for the most part I got the bulk of it out of the way. So hopefully you guys like this. This will tide you over for now. In the meantime, I'll keep working on some other projects, and I'll get back to you guys when I finish more cars, but for now, there's what I got. Thank you for watching, guys. Stay tuned for more. I'll see you in the next video. Take it easy.